Welcome back to Turf Talk, Who You Got edition. James, we have a lot of good races to look forward to, but I wanted to take a quick look back to the male turf division. To me, one of the more contentious Eclipse Award divisions as we head into the Breeders' Cup. Right now, who you got, Beach Patrol or World Approval?
I've got World Approval right now, and I just think a part of that is just his consistency. I mean, they both have back-to-back Grade 1 wins. I think Beach Patrol's a million and the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic's more prestigious, but he dropped his first 4 races this year, and the Breeders' Cup's going to decide the race between them, and I think World Approval has a better chance of winning the mile than Beach Patrol does of the turf.
All right, yeah, obviously if one wins and the other doesn't, the respective race, that horse will be champion. If they both win, it's going to be a pretty big debate. If they both lose, it might come down to who finished higher, and of course if a European male who has some Group 1 wins were to win over here, that might give him the edge. But
somebody like in the Shadwell Turf Mile this weekend could double
that's true. And we have the Canadian International next week if they were to come back on 3 weeks, and the champions at Ascot. So yeah, plenty of good turf racing left. But to me, a few months ago it seemed like that division was pretty shallow. Now all of a sudden, as we'll get to and on point, we have 14 in the Shadwell Mile, we'll have the International, and then we have Beach Patrol winning the million in Hirsch, World Approval going to Woodbine and winning. So yeah, what seemed like maybe a dubious division has really come on in the fall.
Yeah, and absolutely. And World Approval, he won that 4-star Dave at Saratoga on yielding turf. I was a little bit uncertain how good he really was until that Woodbine Mile. I thought he was spectacular. Same thing with Beach Patrol. I thought he got the trip at Deauville hung in the million. I wasn't really convinced that he was really that much superior to the older mile-and-a-half turf horses in America, but he dispelled any doubts, I thought, on Saturday. That was a great win in the Joe Hirsch.
Yeah, big win for sure, and really a great price on a million winner. A lot of people leaning toward Oscar performance in that one. Yeah, confusing the Oscars, which makes me a grouch. But to me, that's the horse I want going into the Breeders' Cup, because the prices might be flipped. And I mean, Beach Patrol won by open lengths. I don't really think he's open lengths better, though.
No, and that's a great point. I think World Approval might be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I mean, we'll have to see what the field looks like and the Euro presence in there, but I think he's really going to be a lot shorter odds. So I totally understand that Beach Patrol sentiment, because he's going to be one of several horses in there just for Chad Brown, and those horses will probably take action as well. So yeah, you have a potential for at least $10 mutual on him.
Yep. All right. And wouldn't be Eclipse Awards talk without touching on the 3-year-old males. I'm still on Always Dreaming until someone wins another race. 2 Grade 1s is enough for me when one of them's the Kentucky Derby. But obviously, if Good Samaritan were to beat males in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and win the Breeders' Cup Classic, he's still in the picture in my mind. Of course, West Coast, to me, just needs a good performance in the Classic. And Oscar performance didn't get it done in the Hirsch, but if he wins a Breeders' Cup race and no other 3-year-old does, he's in the discussion for me. So some ways to go. I have Always Dreaming on top right now, and people give me a hard time for it. But the reality is someone has to pass him in the final weeks, it seems.
I think so. And I think, the thing with both West Coast and even a horse like Pavel, if he was to win the Jockey Club Gold Cup this weekend, is that they both would be looking to run well in the Classic, but they still have an opportunity to come back in a race like the Clark, potentially. So they can still pick up another Grade 1 victory against older horses in a month after the Breeders' Cup. But I'm definitely giving the edge to West Coast right now, and I'm not only giving him the edge, but I'm considering picking him to win the Classic, because I love how he's coming into the race. He's peaking, and his speed numbers are on par with the older horses. So I do think there's a comparison to last year where Baffert had a similar type with Arrogate, and there's not the depth of competition that Arrogate, with his main rival is California Chrome, but I do see Arrogate in that same vein as a peak and 3-year-old, and we know how dangerous they are.
Who's going to ride him?
See, that's it. If I was Mike Smith, I'd take him over Arrogate. Now, I don't know if he will. He might feel he owes it to the Juddmonte camp and such, but there is the fact that West Coast is going to come back and run as a 4-year-old next year in all likelihood. The West have already said they plan on racing him next year. And Mike Smith's looking at giving up that mount potentially. Sure. If Bejarano or somebody else took him and he won the Breeders' Cup Classic, he'd have the mount going forward. So he might just say, hey, no disrespect to Arrogate, but I'm going to ride West Coast because I want to keep that mount going forward.
But if he thinks Arrogate's going to win, then he doesn't have to worry about West Coast winning and keeping the mount.
Yeah, and I just think, heck, I wouldn't be surprised if he does have some uncertainty like a lot of us do.
All right, well, as Meryl Streep said, we have doubts. Did you watch that movie?
No, I didn't see it.
It was good.
Yeah, Doubt, yeah.
Yeah, Doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, not really a comedy. We're laughing about it, but
No,
serious issue. All right, well, serious issue is the Eclipse Award, so good discussion. Looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds over the next few weeks, and we'll be back this weekend at Keeneland.
All right. Sounds great.
Join us.